Hello, hello.
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 Everyone is doing well. Okay, let's get to this. All right. What's today? The 20th was night. Oh, 18th. 18th. All right. Let's copy this. All right. All right, cool. So, I think today, the primary focus is, as me and David has worked quite a bit on trying to find the right and appropriate modeling language for the SDKs. And I think I've done some research and I've gotten a better understanding of like some of the capabilities, at least for Smithy. I did take a look at async as well, which also looks like a decent option, but still going to require some customization. So as I mentioned to David 2 weeks ago, I was going to reach out to a coworker that works on old coworker that worked on Smithy. He still works on Smithy, and it looks like there is a couple SDKs or a couple generators that do generate just models. So that's good. So Java and Python being the two. I think I have those two right. Java is definitely one. I think Python was the second one. Rust and Go are coming. So these are actual features that are coming. So they're well aware that this is a want. So they're currently working on it. So one option is we can use Smithy and then prune the stuff that we don't need for the other SDKs until they have those features. So that's one path we can take for particularly for Smithy if we decide to go that route. But for the other SDKs that already have this implemented, we'd be able to just generate the models. And he gave me some examples on how to do that. So it's actually fairly easy. It's actually just a flag in the generators. So that's some pretty good news, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of relay that over to you, David, to kind of see if that would at least be something we're willing to consider for when choosing modeling language is can we still rely on something like Smithy or should we try something else?
About Smithy, I also do another look, and I try exactly to generate for Go, Python, and Rust.
Mhm.
And the issue is that the documentation, by example, say it's available, but in reality, it's not publicly available. I mean the package, the Java package, because for Smithy we have to code in Kotlin and Java, I guess. So we have to publish on central repository. The documentation says it's ready, but in fact it's not ready. It's meant when I look at the repository, it is really built to generate the AWS SDK. So the repository includes the generation of AWS SDK. It's not currently built to generate a public just generator or etc. So it could take time. After that, as I say, I have some issue to just generate the model. So maybe we will have to look at it. I look at my notes. My notes are are published on the GitHub repository where I made
Perfect.
my test.
Let me see if I can
Extract model.
find it.
Oh yes, there is this point also. Today, for me, it's not clear how with Smithy how we handle the JSON representation.
Can you elaborate a little bit by what you mean by that?
I mean, we define the model. It's an ideal, but when we did it for, I will use the protobuf as an example. You don't care how it is stored in binary, etc., because on both sides, where you are using gRPC or etc., you need to use the EDL and the IDL to generate your coder and decoder. But in the case of Smithy, it's delegated to a plugins to say how the model is translated into the wire format, JSON in this for if you use in our case, but it's not clear what is a JSON schema, what will look like a JSON stuff based on what we have on the IDL.
Right. But you can definitely generate JSON. So is that not the question? Like, is the question more of like how to do it, or is it more of a question on, it just doesn't seem like a good option because it uses plugins. I'm trying to understand
The issue is uh, to in our case, what we try to define is the underlying protocol. So it means what the message will look like. And we try to provide example of those messages, etc., for people that will not use the SDK or that want to create their own SDK. Or the etc. Or if they want to use curl or something else to send a message. But with Smithy, it's not clear what will look like the format on the wire.
Gotcha.
Smithy, it looks more like I say, gRPC or protobuf. You have to agree on this this IDL and to have the implementation for this wire protocol for every language. I guess it exists because AWS SDK are JSON-based HTTP, but they follow some sort of message. And as I have some, to be honest, I have some issue when I try to run some samples. Yes, I got some issue with the provided samples.
I see.
So I was not able to go deeper. Yes, I have to. With Smithy, I don't try to generate. Sorry, for Smithy, when I explore it, I use the examples, the tutorials they provide. It's mean whether it's a weather definition. So it's clear they use all their examples for plugins use it, but I was not able to generate except for TypeScript. I was not able to generate some of them.
Really? Okay. Was there any specific ones? Like when you say generate, do you mean language specific or like
Yes,
sample specific? Okay.
language specific. And when I try for HTTP and JSON, I didn't notice it. I got an issue. No, I fix the issue after. Okay. But
What languages, just to be clear, so I capture that.
the only one I was able to work with is the TypeScript.
TypeScript. But which ones did you try though? You tried Rust, I'm
I
guessing?
try no, I don't try Rust because for Rust it's a bit more complicated because it is used to generate the AWS SDK. It seems to be mixed into the same repository. So in my code, I try with Go and Python.
Gotcha. Okay.
And in fact, both of them are not available. the GitHub repository with all the source is available. But if we want to use it, we have to clone to do some change on the generator, on the plugin itself. We have to rebuild and publish locally the code because
Gotcha. Okay. I
plugins
want
are not available on Maven Central repository yet.
to. Okay. I mean, this is
The
Smithy
official
Rust,
registry.
and this is what you used, right? The Smithy one for Rust.
So, sorry,
This is the Smithy Rust code generator. This is what you were looking at.
I look just at the GitHub repository because it was one of the most biggest, I could say most one of the biggest repository. So I was a bit afraid, and they do a lot of stuff. It's not just the generation. So I fall back to Go and Python, and I got issue with Go and Python because I was not able to download the plugin. In fact, I have an error to download the plugin, and the plugin doesn't exist on Maven Central. I check it.
Okay. That's annoying. What's this?
In the documentation, it's wrote you can use it, but I guess the documentation works because the developer publish locally in Java. You publish first locally, and then it push to a central repository. So it's not yet public. It's not yet published. Sorry, on the central repository.
Really? Okay. Oh, I see. So it's in this one. Interesting. Is this for V1 or V2 though? Let's see. Tags. V1. Ah, I see. Okay.
The version number of the plugin doesn't. It's not related to the version. It's not linked to the version of Smithy.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me see. Languages. That's just Java. That's not really too useful. Do they have a Go one specifically?
Yes, it's part of the Smithy master repo. If you look into the organization, you have the Go one.
Couldn't find anything. Go. Oh, maybe if I just do this. Yeah, Go's not even in here.
Just type Smithy-Go, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't even see it. Yeah, it's not even in here.
I will check the name of it. Look. Python Smithy Go -codegen. See it? It should be on software.
I don't see it. Dash code gen. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see that. I see it in the SDK here. Wait, Smithy GitHub. Smithy code generators. There we go. Let's try this. Oh, we only have this one. Okay. Maybe this is the most recent one then.
Yes, and I use this code sample.
Okay, and then are we sure that this is V2 and not V1?
As they use the same way to define plugin, etc. Anyway, this dependency doesn't exist in reality.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. So it seems like there's a lot of questions here still. Okay. So that makes me a little bit less like I thought we are gonna have like a definitive yes or I'm leaning more towards no for Smithy, but my worry is if we say no to Smithy, like what other options we have. I know you mentioned async code gen.
Yes, and I can do a quick demo of
Yeah,
like the
please,
previous.
please. Yeah,
I
please
will
take over.
share. Share. Can I share just window? Where is the window? This one.
But you did mention it uses Mustache, right?
Not, hello. Yes, you can see my screen.
Hmm.
So in this repository, we will move this. All right. So it's on the same repository where I put Smithy, just the first try. I stop quickly.
Hmm.
So in the README, I put my note. So I have JSON schema OpenAPI I previously shown,
Hmm.
and on async API, I create the spec. This 6 is where I define task run, test run, base CD event, and artifact, and inside some of the predicate published
Hmm.
and deleted, same exactly the same as for OpenAPI, with some adaptation to be able to manage the polymorphisms, I could say.
Right, right. So it's
And
just
yes,
so this is just JSON schema, right?
there's small variation. In JSON schema, you don't have discriminator.
Okay.
OpenAPI introduced its own way to manage discriminator. In this case, they use a simpler way. It means for discriminator, see which one we should choose. We should use a field name kind. In this case, I say use kind as discriminator, and kind should be the name of the schema.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha. Okay,
if
okay.
kind is artifact published, it means I will use the predicate field. I
Hmm.
rename content in predicate to be clear, should follow this schema. In this case, nothing.
Okay, okay.
And I'm with a bit more declarative because I defined ID and names. That was not for OpenID. I don't have to, but for async tools, I had to. Uh, Else, I have some random name like anonymous type 1, anonymous type 2, etc. So not very
Hmm.
stable and useful. So I create the spec. I have the constraint like for OpenAPI and for Smithy to create some kind of fake operation just to validate the parsing of the schema itself.
Oh, gotcha,
My,
gotcha. Yeah.
but in my case, I request just to generate only the schema. So just before the meeting, I ran the command, would take 20, 22 seconds. Everything is in Node.js. All the tool stack for async
Yeah, it's
API
Node. Yeah.
is Node.js. In this case, for Golang, Java, Python, and Rust, I ask to generate only the component and not the integration, like I say, but also not the support files, I mean, builder for project, etc. So they generate only the few classes.
Hmm.
I will show you Go because I guess you are more familiar in Go.
Hmm.
And you will see it's pretty basic. And it's like for other generator I saw, I guess for what I see on Smithy TypeScript, it's the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's why I say if we if we want to add some validation, constraint, etc., we will have to customize the way
Hmm.
those classes are generated with some annotation, maybe with some helper, etc. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
basic generation. We
Yeah,
will
but
also have to generate tests, etc.
yeah, yeah. I think the core issue though is just the generating of the models, right? Once we get that, I think solving like for validation and whatnot should come a lot easier, whether that's through plugins, extensions, or however you can extend the generators. I think we'll be able to do. But yeah, this definitely looks a lot very, very promising. The fact that we just have the models, makes it very, very nice. So that's
And
already.
to start exploring more on how to customize, etc. They already provide some generator for Markdown, but in our case, it doesn't generate something fine, I could say. So I create my own
Oh, I did have
template.
one question though.
Yes.
Documentation. Was that like I didn't see any documentation. Is that something that we can generate like in the code, like comment wise?
With the default template, I guess no,
No. Okay,
not.
okay.
But it's why transition, I try to start working on my own template. In this case, for Markdown, they provide a big sample how to create your own template, etc. It's JavaScript only. With TypeScript, I got
Mm,
some issue. In this one, I try to mimic what we have today in the core.markdown test, the group. But
mm,
it was one of the issue is it creates issue when I want to link stuff, etc. It will take more time. So I use a different approach is to generate one Markdown files per type, exactly like for other. And I will show the preview so you will be able to see. In this case, I retrieve the documentation. I generate all the fields. I try to be exactly not. Try to be similar to what we have today, but only
mm.
generated from the schema. So we have, I didn't extract the constraint yet. I didn't put the code. And I try to create a not too complicated JavaScript code to generate all of this. Because their Markdown is more, there are more work on it. So just to show you what's the generation, in this case, I put also links. It's why I create. So I guess that it could become, so it's Markdown compatible with GitHub display. So
Okay, okay.
this here the tips to expand for the expand section is the same tips.
And then the idea would be this markdown would, when we do the code generating, it would use this template and then
We
those
will also
examples.
generate exactly.
Okay,
So
that is awesome.
the source of truth will be some Markdown wrote manually where we want to explain concept and maybe that didn't fit exactly as what
Mm,
we have today.
okay.
It will
And
also be
where was this
more
modeled again? This was modeled as YAML, right? Where was that again? I'm trying to, oh, the spec. Okay, perfect,
a
perfect.
spec.
Okay, awesome, awesome.
Spec V6. I copy paste stuff. I list, if you look at CD Events, I try to
Mhm.
list all the modification I made regarding what we have today.
Okay. And so my question here is, so we have this description, right?
Mm.
Is the markdown going to pull that description from the spec, or is it going to have its own template and just ignore the description? I guess that's kind of where my question is. Like that description, yeah.
Description, I put everything from the spec.
Okay, but my question is, when we use the template, the markdown template, right? Are we going to be pulling the description from the template or pulling the description from the YAML?
From the YAML,
Okay, all
which is
right, just
here.
making sure. All right, awesome, awesome. All right.
Here you have the description, and it's what is interesting, and if we continue on this approach, is we could add our own extension
Mhm,
if we want to add more information, I could say.
mhm,
Today, one of the limitation, one smaller difference examples is the way we define examples. When we define examples where the way to define examples when it's part of the schema in async API, like in Open API, is just an array of value. But when you use examples, when it's part of Open API, but in the section operation, by example, operation, in this case, it is a more richer example definition. I have some issue because there are two ways to define examples, but it's more interesting. And I would like to have something similar. I mean, being able to add description to each examples. And it's something that we use. We could say you can use the default the default value is for default is not a good example, but we could provide description for package. We could say an example of a package of Java package is this one. An example of Docker package is like this, etc., etc. But today it's not supported because it's just the value. Maybe we have here. I could say.
Okay.
So
I
it
do like that. Yeah.
So it was what it was. Subject. One, why we need to use anyway Modelina, etc. is often what is provided by specific language feature is they try to replace some concept to they try to translate some concept from spec into the language. I mean, how multi-inheritance should be handled, how subpart should be merged together, etc., to provide something more consistent and avoid developer to have to recode. Or when I have all of that combine a ref and maybe a field, a list of fields, it means that we have to merge both of them. Or if we have to create an inheritance when we transform them into other stuff. In this case, I try to add extension. So it starts with X, just to be able to create some groups, maybe an index with them like what we have, but I didn't made it yet.
Okay, so yeah, well, I think this already, since you've already gotten so far, this actually looks really promising. Would you say that this is a better, I mean, I think I know the answer, but do you think this is a better choice for us to go down? Or do you think you want to still do a little, because I wanted to make a decision today. Like, so if we make a decision, let's just make it, we're going to make it work basically. Like whatever we choose, we're going to make it work. So do you think we should go with async API is what I'm wondering.
Today, yes, it's my favorite. To be clear, it's my favorite. What I dislike, it's everything is JavaScript, and sometimes it's a pain to work with it. I have some type issue. It's a pain, but it's also the one of this advantage, I could say, if it's easier also to manipulate the JSON structure, to dig into it. And if we want to generate the JSON examples, it starts to become maybe something could be simple to iterate and to work on it. But it's a little bit hard to start. And the template, in this case, they support two types of template. A legacy one that is like handlebar, but name Mozilla, I don't remember, but it's handlebar-like. But what they try to promote is one based on React. So, and name React SDK, I will show you the code. So for Markdown, the components, so for the schema, and when you say, oh, I provide the schema, so I say schema interface, and I have to create a bunch of text, so a section for header, a section for description, etc. And we create your own tag in this way. So it's doesn't look like if you put a template in Markdown and fields, it's really a component-oriented I could say React. In common, it's just Markdown, how I translate tag into Markdown.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think so. I do have the same reservations with it being Node. I'm not a big fan of JavaScript. Or I'm not a big fan of interpreted languages, basically. I'm not really I like type safety, but I think for code generation, it makes a lot of sense. We don't have to worry too much about whether or not it can run on separate systems, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not really too much of an issue today. But it definitely makes I think rapid prototyping very, very easy with something like Node or TypeScript. I wish they would have used Python though, but Python's very, very slow, so I could see why they chose Node. But yeah, but this definitely looks promising. So if you're okay, David, I say let's make it async then. Let's make the hard decision. Let's make it async and let's start getting the ball rolling on starting to generate some of the models for the SDK. You probably still need a POC just to make sure that we can generate like maybe a couple models just from an SDK just to show that it works. And then we can kind of make the full transition. What do you think?
Yes, to complete this one was some kind of POC to identify what I have to change to go into this approach. So it's why I list all the change I try to do. To have a full POC, what we will have, what we need to go now if we continue, it's to generate maybe a basic Rust is if I try, for me it's a good example. It's a Rust SDK with it with yes, a SDK with some test or to generate
Yeah.
example, etc.
Okay, awesome. And then one thing we should try to is try to make it as backwards compatible as possible. I mean, we don't have to make it, 100%, but we should try our best, right? So,
It one of the biggest change. It's why I list everything.
yeah.
And one of the big difference to not be backward compatible that will not allow us to be full backward compatible is how we handle version and type. I mean, today, all those language, just to handle what is the type of the structure, it should be a inside field or some support a parent field. But in our case, it's a field of a sibling structure. I mean, type is defined in context and not in subject or not in etc.
Oh, gotcha. I see what you're saying.
So
Okay,
it's
okay.
one of the issue. And also to generate this, the other one, and it was the purpose is to have a single scheme, a single umbrella schema with everything and not one schema per message, as we already. So in this case, having one version per artifact and per predicate doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I agree. And then also one thing that we need to make sure that we do, and I think you're already doing this, is like, moving context to be its own type, right? And not having that,
Yes.
I see that right there. So that's exactly, I think that kind of like refers to like what you were just saying. But yeah, I think that's definitely the better approach. And yeah, so let's create a few GitHub issues then, kind of like see what the low hanging fruit can be for code generation. Maybe we could start with the Rust SDK if that's the one you're most comfortable with. I think that makes total sense. And we don't have to generate everything. We could do it, incrementally. So let's just try to, create some issues, kind of capture that and start thinking about like milestones and whatnot so we can kind of like plan this accordingly. But yeah, as always, Thank you, David. This is really good work. Unfortunately, Smithy didn't turn out to be as easy to use, and it looks like it's still a little too coupled to AWS for us. So I think going with something that's a little bit more generic, like something like async API makes a lot of sense. So yeah, let's make this a decision then. Let me capture that in the notes real quick.
I will, in this case, I will try to translate some of the change I made into its own issue, so we could discuss about it. Because
Okay.
in this one, to continue on the type, today we could say we have two levels. We have in fact we have one level is subject plus predicate,
Mm-hmm.
and in this approach, I tried to have two levels, subject, and inside the subject, I have another. I have
Yeah, one of,
a
yeah.
predicate section.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a list with all the predicate and all the subject.
Yeah, that's a lot smoother and a lot better in my opinion. So I like that approach. Okay, yeah, let's like I said, let's do that. And then one thing that we should do too is when we select the async API, we should create like a README for best practices, for example, for the schema. Like, so that way we are consistent. So when we say, for example, right, we saw this issue with your recent GitHub post with the string versus enum, right?
Hmm.
Being closed versus open, which in this case, like we assumed enum to be open. Like we need to have those correct definitions, but we also need to say, hey, if you're going to say an enum is, if you're going to use an enum, it means it is closed, for example. And if you're going to use, if you have, you should generate your schema in such a way that it follows kind of a tree pattern where you have the subject at the kind of the root level and then the predicates as it's as things that it can inherit from essentially. So yeah, I think as long as we kind of capture that, so people when they're creating adding schemas and whatnot, they can just kind of like follow some sort of guidelines. And I think we don't have to do that now. I think once we start writing some of the POC stuff, we'll have some lessons learned. And then once we kind of like generate a few models, we can start that document.
Yes. What on your side, if you have time, I will send. It will be good if you can start by just reviewing those few
Models.
specific, yes, few
Yeah, yeah.
models,
Please. Yeah, just send it my way and I'll take a look.
and look at it by to because I made some change, some choice, but by example, to be more consistent, something that could be already done today, in fact, now, is to start sharing some type definition by using reference. I mean, today, by example, I create timestamp, and it's always the same definition for every timestamp, instead of copy paste the 3 line on every examples by examples that we have today. Something that we already start, correct me Andrea if I'm wrong, example for links. Links, it's already have its own definition on every schema reference links. Yes. So it's something that could already help to, it's something that we can do to have consistency about example, ID, etc. So it's also why I define a lot of type just for 2 lines. Our stuff is just to be sure that they are consistent. So every example for PURL, I create their own definition. It's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
because it helps to create its own classes behind
Yes,
the scene if I
exactly.
want, etc.
Yep. I think that
Yeah.
is perfect. One thing I'm curious about though is I see you have this URI type, right, that we wrap. Is that going to have an issue in like, let's say Java or Go where URI is already a class? Is this going to be a class within a class essentially, or no?
No, something I didn't try, but it's available with OpenAPI generator. It's like you can define type mapping. It means when you see this type in the schema,
Okay.
use this type instead.
Gotcha. Okay. That is
But
something we'll
we could want to have a wrapper to hide the underlying type or something like that. So
right. Um, okay, we probably don't want to do that just because it'll make using the SDK a little weird, especially if people are used to using like a URI. And then like now you need to like well as long as you can easily wrap it, that's fine.
it
But
it will really depends. In the case of Rust, we have several implementation for URI, but I guess for URI reference, few few language have a definition of URI reference in a standard way, or there is not a de facto way. So
gotcha.
wrapping, it's a way to also to support maybe several format or to add a check, etc. Package URL, PURL, it's a URI by definition, but we want to maybe to wrap and to do some check, like it should start by a PKG or something like that, or use something provided by an external
Library.
external.
Yeah.
Same for timestamp. In Python, I guess I don't know in Go, but in Python, in Java, and in Rust, there are several libraries for define timestamp, because the one provided from the standard library, it's not good enough to support some time zone, or I don't know.
Yes. So for Go, the standard library is like king. Like time, everyone uses the time component. But that's what I mean. It seems like it might be a little weird for like some languages. So we'll have to kind of play it by ear, but we want to be careful of like, I mean, as long as it's easy to wrap, then I don't think we'll have too much of an issue. As long as people aren't using the type directly. Oh, I don't know, we'll have to see. It just seems a little interesting. And I'll give you an example of this, right? So I don't know how familiar you are with the AWS SDK. The AWS SDK,
By example, just
yeah.
to show you, for the default template, as on JSON, it's a string timestamp. They just say timestamp is a string. So anyway, we will have to create our own
Wait, it won't actually make
template.
it a time? Like, can you not use time there? Like a
Yes,
time?
because it's a pretty basic template. And often it's the
Oh,
case on lot of generators. Oh, it's a string, it's a string. Sometimes they say, oh, it's a time, I will use a timestamp, or there is a regex or a pattern, so I maybe modify the constructor to add some check, etc. But nothing.
gotcha. Okay, I want to look into that a little bit because that is a little odd. I would hope um that that they would support time because that is I mean I'm that's just like really interesting. So I'm trying to find if there's any information on this. Okay, I can do that offline, but worst case we just have to wrap everything. Not it's not the end of the world. But it just might make using the SDK a little weird. Especially if we have our own like time objects and whatnot, especially if wrapping it if it's only a string like that might make it even weirder. Um so yeah, let me see here. And if I remember correctly, the Modelina is the code generator, right?
Yes, Modelina is the it's the code generator just for the model.
Yes. Okay, perfect. That's
From
exact.
template I use, but we have to use the CLI to call Modelina, in fact. You have all the command. It's here. Yes, in this case, I use Modelina generate. It's where is the task? Modelina generate. I use async CLI. And when we use generate model, it means it will
Mhm.
only use Modelina.
Okay, okay. Okay, I need to do a little bit of research on the time object because that's gonna really be interesting because that's a very common use case. But
Yes, for OpenAPI, maybe I still have for OpenAPI and what was generated model text. They use the type timestamp in for Go.
um
Sorry, they use time.time
time dot time.
and with some annotation. It's more
Ah,
there is it's more up to, I could say up to state of the art code for with OpenAPI. OpenAPI was very neat, but customized templates mean modifying our mustache and not handlebar, and some modification in Java and create our own Java code. So the time and the iteration, it's a bit longer.
gotcha, gotcha. Okay. And unfortunately, the examples they have for Go is really lacking. So, they literally the model that they generate has two fields, which is an email, which is a string, and a name, which is a string, which is not a very good example. Okay, let me look into that a little bit. But yeah, if we make like we'll use this, we can always figure out, if we have to make a custom extension or something just to have time, to use like the raw time type, that's also fine. I'd rather do that than wrapping something like time because like I said, like time is such a widely used um concept in all languages that it would just be weird to wrap it unless we're wrapping it for like good reason, like for example like marking as like an optional type or something, but there's already libraries that do that. So I don't think we need to do that. But yeah, let me so like I said, we'll stick with async API. But I do want to answer that question of um how time works, timestamps. So yeah. And if I find information, I will let you know. Um, but it doesn't really say, it just says string. So timestamp is also a string here. Format is just date time and everything is a time. Okay, so it literally just generates a time object. Okay, that is interesting. So yeah, it's very, very basic, like you had said. So okay. So we'll need to figure out how you want to handle that. You said we can potentially wrap it, but people are going to want to pass their own time objects or the standard library's timer, etc. Um, Interesting. Okay. We'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, awesome. So this is definitely great work, David. Like I said, always really appreciate it. Let's make the decision of sticking with async and just kind of working through all the weirdness, like the timestamp, for example, and just figuring out how to fix that in the generators. All right, so that's pretty much all I had. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add or wanted to talk about, David?
No, I'm still working on my own project also. So
Okay. No worries, no worries. Okay, so for the following week then, I will create some GitHub issues and some milestones for these particular tasks for to transition to async API. In the next 2 weeks for the next meeting, we will kind of go over the roadmap to doing this and kind of coming up with a plan on trying to figure out the best plan to kind of get this tackled for all the SDKs and kind of go from there. Sound good?
yes,
All right, awesome. Well, thanks again, David. We're gonna end a little bit early, so 10 minutes. And yeah, man, I'll talk to you if you're at the next SIG. I'll see you at the next SIG. Worst case, I'll see you in 2 weeks. All right.
yes, I put in the notes the link to the spec to review if
Perfect.
you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I am definitely curious and I'll definitely review some of that too. So yeah, like I said, if I have any questions, I'll definitely ping you as well. And
Yes,
any feedback that I have, I'll just dump in a private message then, right?
right. Okay, yes.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'll talk to you later then, all right?
Yeah.
All right, have a good one. Bye, David.
Bye.